I'm kind of ignorant on that. All right, so the first thing I want to say about Martin. One thing I am kind of concerned about, and it could be really stupid, is the theme song for one. Right? So when they bring this show back, obviously every show is gonna have a theme song. I'm hoping that they don't try to do an updated trap version of the the theme song. You know, it's gonna sound terrible. Everybody keeps texting me. It's gonna sound terrible if they try to do some updated 2018 trap music, Young Thuggish reason. And the reason why I feel like that they may attempt to do that, I'm gonna tell you that in a little bit where it can apply. But I'm hoping with the theme, I hope they don't do that. I hope they leave it alone. And when at least they leave it alone, I say use the first theme song that they ever used for that show, because I know there's a couple theme songs that they used. That do 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 do, and he's all that whole part. Let's stick to the original one, the original first Martin theme song. And if you're gonna do an intro for it, do the intro with that theme song and with the same graphics, the same background with the random African, designs and the colors and stuff, and people on a green screen messing around and doing funny stuff. If we could stick to that, I would really appreciate that. That'd be dope if you just leave that alone. But if you try to do some updated graphical thing or whatever, it's gonna ruin it. It's gonna ruin it. Like, it sounds stupid, but I love that show. And if it's something that's really a show that captured your heart or whatever, in a sense, you don't want people to ruin it. I don't want people to ruin something I really care about. Another thing that I am concerned about, or not really concerned, I don't want to say concerned. I'm not losing sleep at night, sweating in my bed, thinking about how they're gonna make this Martin show. Another thing is that obviously, one of the biggest things that happened for the show is the loss of Thomas Michael Ford. He passed on October 12th, 2016 from an aneurysm. Now, obviously, that's a sad situation. So I was wondering, how are they going to write him off? I hope they don't write him off tacky. One of the things I think the tackiest thing they can do as far as writing him off is to actually get another character to replace him. And when I say replace him, I mean another guy to come into the fold and try to be Tommy. I wouldn't want that. That's tacky. That's almost as worse as the Viv switch up. Even though the even though the yellow Viv kind of, she was okay, but I felt like, the older Viv had a little bit more sauce. The newer one, she was kind of plain. She was plain. She was yellow. It didn't make sense why Ashley and Carlton was so dark. It just made a whole lot of questions. It changed the whole dynamic of whatever's going on. It was just kind of weird. But Will and the other characters carried the show. But I wouldn't want that to happen with Tommy. And if you guys are not familiar with Martin, Tommy's a guy that never had a job supposedly, and he always had this money. He always dressed well. The tall, bald, black guy. So what I would say is a way that they can there's two ways they can do it. Either they can just write him off and say that he basically finally came across a business or his job and got really successful and moved away somewhere else to start working his job. It could be that, or he can leave behind, like, and this is probably the worst idea I have out of both of them. But if they're gonna do something about it, maybe have him have a son or something that he left, and he didn't want to take him with him to travel to different businesses, and have his son not necessarily be just like Tommy, where he's like lying about a job. Let him be a character who has a hard time keeping a job. So it's like a flip dynamic, in a sense. Even though Tommy really already had a job, have his son have a hard time keeping a job. He's always trying. He's like not necessarily like hustle man, but always trying to do a good get rich quick scheme, in a sense. He feel like, like people nowadays, I'm going to start my own business. I don't need a job. I don't want a job. I can go out here and start this business, this label, whatever they want to start, so they can go ahead and become rich one day. Let him be that type of character. But don't make him too much like Tommy, but make him a different character who fits well into the mold. And he's not going to be like the guy that's a part of the main group, like with Gina and Pam and Martin and Cole. Don't infuse him into that. Just make him as a cameo type character and let him use him when you need to be, so at least someone can watch the show and feel like some part of Tommy is still around, in a sense. I don't want them to have a funeral for the character. It's a little too dark for the show Martin. Another thing I was thinking about is Martin and Gina's relationship. So the worst thing they can do in that situation is to have them be divorced or separated. I feel like that's the worst thing they can do. Because I mean, obviously, the last episode of the final season of Martin kind of led us on to say that they may or may not work out. You know, it kind of gave us those questions, even though everybody knew what was going on behind the scenes. But don't have them separated, like, you know. And if they are going to be separated, kind of make it towards where you're getting back together, you know, because their relationship was kind of, in a sense, the backbone of the whole entire show. And you don't want to see another, you know, black family being divorced and split up like that. You don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. So just have them together. They don't have to be super rich. It doesn't have to be this thing where Martin became this super, super successful thing. He could take the place of his boss at the radio station and still make decent money, have a little bit better house, but not make him super rich, because I think that was part of what made the show unique. And kind of the total opposite of Fresh Prince is that they lived in Detroit in this house, this apartment in the ghetto, and they was kind of struggling to make it, you know, with bills and all kind of stuff, because those are real life problems. So I would like for them to keep them together and keep them in some type of house where it's good, but it's not like a perfect house. Just make it where, in a sense, they're still kind of struggling in a way to kind of relate to the everyday black person, in a sense, and yeah, have it that way. And as far as like for them, I would like for them to have kids there too, like a girl and a boy. That would be nice. But don't make the kids the main characters of the story. Don't do the Boy Meets World thing, what they did with Girl Meets World, because that's gonna ruin the dynamics of all the jokes. The kids don't have to be around all the time. You can have the kids be older, actually. Let them be teenagers. And I will flip the roles around and say, like, the boy is the son is more like Gina and the girl is more like Martin. And that can cause a pretty interesting dynamic, in a sense of where Gina's proud of her son because he's like focused. I don't want to say he's not gonna be nerdy, but he's like focused on his career and not trying to have fun. But Martin is like, hey man, you know, I grew up this way. You gotta have a lot of fun at your age. You can't be sitting here just always into the books and always thinking about this and thinking about that. And Martin's trying to break him out of that mold and try to make him like he used to be when he was younger. But the part that's gonna be funny to me is that if the girl is too much like Martin and she's out there just wilding, trying to go to parties and, you know, playing boys left and right, kind of like, you know, like just like being all obnoxious, then Martin's kind of like in a conflict where he's like trying to scale her back, but at the same time remembers that he used to be that way. And then what can also add to the dynamic, and also with Gina trying to teach her how to be a lady and teach her to be like Gina, that can be a whole different dynamic as well, to try to keep her to be, I guess, professional or presentable or whatever, but not kind of force it on her, but just kind of, you know, have that thing going on there. And not only that, have the boy try to but the son try to start a business. Worry about the business side, but Martin wants to get him into the radio station and work for the radio, because he can't find somebody to fill the void that Martin once had, because Martin becomes the boss of the radio station. And he should have where he wants his son to work in a radio station and say, you know, because he has similar personality in a sense a little bit, and he can see himself in him. But the problem is that the daughter is more like Martin, and she's good on the radio, but Martin doesn't want her to be on a radio station. Maybe because he knows what goes on behind the scenes as far as women and radio station stuff, and he's trying to keep her away from that. He should make it where it's that type of situation. I think that dynamic in itself will be really, really, really interesting. Another thing that I was wondering about is Cole. What are they going to do with Cole? You know, because he lived with his mama. Are they going to make him become some different grown successful guy, or is he still going to live with his mom? Is he going to be living with Big Shirley? That's the question I have as far as that goes. I don't really know what solution there is for that. You know, I don't know what the real solution for him is as far as that situation. There's something I'm going off. But I will say, I don't know. You can have him maybe live with Martin and them in the attic. Maybe he was like one of those characters that just comes out of nowhere and is always interrupting stuff. Oh, that's another question I have. Will Bro Man from the Fifth Floor, is he gonna be back? You know, I'm sure they're gonna have a Tracy Morgan appearance for him to be Hustle Man. I'm sure that's gonna happen. What else you know? Those are the type of things I worry about that show. Those things itself. I think otherwise, I think they can do a good job with it. And another thing, the last thing I just forgot right here in my notes. My main concern is the show going to be PC'd out? Because one of the things that made those shows back in the 90s pretty good, even to this day, because they said things and did things that weren't PC at all. The jokes they made on there wasn't PC. Like, for instance, I can see if Martin and Pam joke, like, kind of have an argument and fake like they're gonna fight, I can see people taking offense to that because people can feel like that they can, not taking domestic violence that serious. I mean, it sounds crazy, but people are going to do that. It's going to happen. Because remember French Montana on Twitter, he made a joke about somebody's hair, about their hair being nappy, and Twitter went in on him. He went on the Breakfast Club, and even Charlamagne told him, like, hey, tell them I love black women, tell them I'm sorry. And they killed his mention for saying somebody's hair is nappy. Martin's been calling Pam's hair nappy for the longest time. So I don't know if he has the same, like, bulletproof aura like Dave Chappelle has, where he can say whatever he wants to say and they're not going to shut him down, or if people nowadays are going to get really sensitive and pick every little thing. But I will say that it's a possibility that it can work without them being PC, because the Carmichael Show, which is still one of my favorite shows of all time, which I feel like it should have never got canceled, the jokes that they had in there, especially David Allen Greer, like the jokes that they had in there was so tongue-in-cheek and so quote-unquote obnoxious, but it was funny and it was true, and they were giving honest opinions about their jokes. So hopefully they be able to let Martin have that same dynamic in this show. And those are the only couple things that I have a concern and a thought about with that show. Hopefully those things that happen and make the show a lot better. So I want to move on from that. I feel like I'm doing too much of a deep dive in a show that may not even happen. It's been rumored, but I think Tisha Campbell-Martin, which my wifey, how you doing? She made an announcement that the show should be coming up, and that she can't say too much about the details, but I can't wait to see what the show is going to do. I can't wait till it happens.